Today I'm going to talk about computers. I know it's not guitars, but you know what? It is what brings you this video and other videos. We need a computer to do YouTube. So I don't know if you know this, but when I do something, I try to do it ridiculous. So I have these video studios, lots of cameras and all 4K and live switching. There's a whole control room over there. And then I get the video files and I work with them and edit and lots of titling and all that stuff. And that takes processing power. It takes space. I do courses. My courses are 15 hours, 52 hours, 7 hours. That takes a lot of space, a lot of editing time, a lot of processing power. Now, a few years ago when Apple released the Mac Pro, the big cheese grater one, I looked at it and was like, that's silly. Who's going to buy that? And then shortly after, I did. It is ridiculous. But I did, because I said any advantage that I can have in terms of time, data transfer speeds, processing time, conversion time, all that is time I have to make videos, to be on the phone, to talk to brands. Efficiency in workflow is essential to me. And I had the trash can Mac, I had an iMac, and then the iMac Pro. And the problem with all of them is external storage. I hated external storage. I had a whole shelf down here with loads of external drives. And they all went into USB hubs. And the good old spinny, uppy, mechanical drives, USB speeds was a problem. Then your USB hub crapped out. Every couple of years, or 1 or 2 years, the USB hubs failed. Up to the point where, get this, I literally always have a brand spanking new spare one ready to go in case I need it. And it still takes you half a day to figure out that the USB hub failed. Big pain in the ass. So I love the idea of going to the Mac Pro and having internal storage. So the Mac Pro ran me, I don't know, $11,000. That's insane for a computer. But it's my job. It's my job that was to be more efficient with that computer. And then I looked at the internal storage solutions, and even just to put in a hard drive, fucking Apple, you had to buy the Promise chassis, okay? It came with 1 8, and then you could put a secondary 8 or whatever in there. So I had 2 8-terabyte drives, and that cost you $400. So you bought that ridiculous computer, but it actually didn't have any facility to put in an extra hard drive, which is of course dumb. It had 190 gigs of RAM. It had the 16-core Xeon processor. It was a nice machine. For $2,500, I put the Afterburner card in there, nice video card. And I also bought the Promise RAID, which was $2,500, 4 8-terabyte drives. One of them you didn't see, so that added up to 24 terabyte of a nice RAID drive that you just clicked in and it worked immediately. And that gave me quite a bit of storage internally. And the thing that really made sense was to get an OWC Excelsior. That's what it's called. And this is 4 NVMEs on one card, PCIe, that are seen as a single drive, being read as one, and the speed is over 6 gigabytes a second. And I know there's some NVMEs where you have the same speed now, but this is a thing that I've been editing from 4 terabyte for a while. It was about $1,000, but you needed PCIe in the Mac Pro. And overall, with the monitor and all those drives, that machine ran me $16,000. I don't regret buying that, but then I think half a year later after I bought it, they introduced the silicon. And then another half a year or year later, they introduced the M1 Mac Studio. And I was like, oh, great. That is smoking my Mac. But I didn't buy one because the step wasn't too big in terms of processing power, and I didn't want external storage. I hated the idea of external storage. Now, I'm building a third video studio next door, behind this wall, bought a whole house. Deal isn't finished, but we're renovating it. We're putting a whole video studio in there, including an editing suite. And I need a computer for that. So the Mac Pro is going over there. And that gave me an opportunity to say, okay, let's update here to the M2 Ultra Mac Studio or Pro. Well, on the new Mac Pro, which is silicon-based, they don't have the MPX slots. And that would be the slot where I just take out my RAID from Promise, stick it in, and I have my beautiful, big, fast 650 megs a second internal RAID storage. Well, you know what? They did away with that. So I can't use that. What's the benefit of the new Mac Pro? I could put this card in, or maybe several of them, yes. If I ran a Pro Tools system or I needed external, mega processing CAD cards or whatever, but I don't have that. So the only, and I can't really put in internal storage easily because they took away that MPX slot. So how do I get a Mac Studio, which is still going to be pricey, and give it all the external storage I need? I need a lot of external storage because, again, just my songwriting course clocks in at 14 terabytes with everything finished. So I do have, and I'm going to show you in the drawer down here, a lot of external drives that I buy, put things on there, my finished videos. I don't actually store my sessions at all, other than for my courses, but I need a lot of storage. This is the drives you see there are all 6s, 8s, and 10s. Now I have 2 16s for my songwriting course. It's ridiculous storage, but the stuff I'm using at the time, at the moment, needs to be accessible from the computer. So I was very hesitant to buy the Mac Studio and say, well, let's just get things like I had on the Mac Pro before, which is something like this. This is a TerraMaster, clocks in at $200-300, got it off Amazon. And yeah, you can do a RAID on 2 drives, but these things frequently disconnect from the computer. Oh, well, one of the drives got a problem, then it just disconnects all of them. The first one has an issue, then this one's gone. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass. It's only USB. And the quality of this is very, very plasticky. You know, it did the job, but really only for some backup drives. Nothing I really wanted to work from. So I contacted OWC because my buddy Mendel worked with OWC on his new system a while back when he did an M1 Mac Studio. And we had a great chat. And we found a kick-ass solution. The Mac Studio also has 4 Thunderbolt ports in the back. That, for me, isn't enough. I have a drive bay from Blackmagic Design for SSDs. I have Thunderbolt audio interfaces. I have an extra Thunderbolt little monitor that is converting video to go into the studio over there. I have 2 screens on here. 4 Thunderbolt ports in the back wouldn't have been enough. I want to keep the ones in the front open to just plug things in conveniently. So what to do? We had a long chat, and they told me, why don't you get a Flex 8? Now that tower is in Germany $1,300 and something bucks, and then it's empty. But first of all, it has a PCIe slot, so I can use my Excelsior, which is great. Not at the full 6 gigs a second. And the top speed you can get through Thunderbolt in a case like this is 2700, which is pretty fast, and fast enough for any video chores I have. So I can continue using that. And OWC was nice enough to say, put this in the Flex 8. We're going to supply you with a demo Excelsior and the big one, the 8 one, so that is, as you will see in the video, going back into the Mac Pro, which is going as is in the new editing suite. They said, load up the drives I have in here into the Flex 8, and then, which I did, I put 4 of these 5 drives in there, a 16, an 18, a 10, and a 10, and then I bought 4 16 terabyte drives to put into the Flex 8, which I can define as a RAID. And that is the beautiful thing about OWC. Their soft RAID is just software. So in software, you select the drives and then just say this is a RAID. And the great thing is, with the newest OS on Mac, the drivers for soft RAID are actually included. So super simple. I'm going to show you some unboxings of the drives. I'm going to show you how we install them. And then we're going to go how the system continues, because there's a little bit more that we did. you saw, we took the 4 out of the Mac Pro and put the 8 in. Then we installed the 4 in the Flex 8. Can you follow me? And we put in 4 brand new Seagate drives, 16 terabyte each, which will be configured as the RAID. And then the individual drives we uninstalled from the TerraMaster and put a 16, 18, and a 10 and a 10 in there. That's already a lot. So that RAID configured as RAID 5 means one of the drives won't be seen. So it's not 64 terabytes, actually 48. But it means that if any of those drives fail, I can take one out, put one in, and it rebuilds all my data. So I have redundancy, and the speed is now around 600 megs a second, which is beautiful from a 48 terabyte drive. Internally in the Mac, I have 2, and that's a hugely fast drive. Apple wants too much money for anything else, so I stuck with 2. Then I said, well, don't you have this mini stacks STX or whatever it's called, which kind of like is for the Mac Mini or the Mac Studio to go underneath and connects with Thunderbolt, and then also gives you 3 more Thunderbolt connections. So you're losing 1, but you're gaining 3, which means you gained 2 extra ones. That is a cool idea. And it actually, and I saw that on Mendel's video, it holds a mechanical drive and an NVMe. And I said, well, why don't we do this? And I put a 22 terabyte mechanical in there and a 4 terabyte NVMe, which is really fast. So I have technically this one. We're gonna get to why I'm holding this. And I have another 4 terabyte NVMe, with really fast speed in the chassis below. So I'm gonna show you that as well. In addition to that, I use the OWC, I already had that, Thunderbolt hub. It's about $150, but that gives you, if you have Thunderbolt 4, you plug one in and then you get 3 extra slots. So I have 3 new ones in the mini stacks, minus 1 that I'm losing on the Mac Studio, and the same thing with the hub. So that gives me quite a bit of extra Thunderbolt storage. Also on the Flex 8, as you saw, you're chaining through Thunderbolt, and you're winning a USB-C and USB-A on the front, as well as card readers. So let's add up. I've got an internal of 2, plus 4. In the mini stacks, I've got a 4 NVMe and a 22. I have 48 in the RAID, that rhymes. We have 18, 16, 10, and 10, and I have a good old Western Digital USB-C, 20 terabyte, just sitting next to the Flex 8, connected with a USB cable. So I added up, and that clocks in at 154 terabytes of storage. That's ridiculous, but I have drives that are purely there for shoving data on there to park until I need it again. I have drives that I can easily work off of, like the RAID drive, which is 600 megs a second, and I have the internal drive, which is fast enough for anything you ever want, but I also have the NVMe below, and this NVMe RAID with 4 terabytes. This now gives me a machine that just works. It is stunning how easy it was to install what you just saw, to configure the soft rate, to just get it running. They don't crash, they're just there. Yes, that Flex 8 as an empty chassis was quite a bit more than anything you might want to put your money in. But I've done it. I've spent the money on these shit boxes, and then they fail, and I have a bunch of them over there. And what's the point if your drives crash? What's the point if, and they don't crash, but they're gone, and they're, disconnected. I didn't do anything. But they do. With Thunderbolt, which is now what I have, the mini stacks below, Thunderbolt connection. The Flex 8, Thunderbolt connection. Yes, it'll cost you. But I now have a Mac Studio, whisper quiet in the corner there, and I have 154 terabytes of storage available in different speeds and different functions. Quieter than even my cheese grater Mac, which was already quiet because the Mac Studio itself is super quiet. The mini stacks, I hear the drive a little bit because there's a mechanical drive in there. But the Flex 8, that has fans and has loud drives. I don't hear it because I actually have a Thunderbolt cable going through the wall into the room where Leslie sits in the switching room. And I'm sorry if you don't know this, Leslie is my wife. She switches all my videos live. And Thunderbolt has the limitation of 2 meters. Apple sells a Thunderbolt cable of 3 meters for $170. Okay, go ahead and do this. I also have a OWC Thunderbolt dock, which I use for SD card reading, but primarily I actually use it as a Thunderbolt extender. So for my LG Ultrafine display, which is a Thunderbolt monitor, I run from the Mac Studio to the Thunderbolt dock, and then from there to the monitor, which literally gives me twice the length. So you might want to actually do that with something cheaper like the Thunderbolt hub. If you need more length, get something like this instead of the ridiculous Apple cable. But going through the wall allows me to have the louder drives on the opposite side of the wall and have the actual Mac Studio in here super quiet. Why is this not installed at the moment? Well, because after I configured everything, it was so smooth. The drives showed up, the RAID thing worked. It was super simple. Then it took me a week to install all my software and the plugins and, samples. It took a while, but it worked. And then I was ready to work. And then I installed one update from Apple, and then the computer wouldn't boot. It would crash. Reinstalled the whole OS and scared the living crap out of me, and then wouldn't boot, and did it again. I disconnected all the drives. The Mac worked. And then we found out that because of this update, there's one thing that right now isn't compatible with that OS, which is NVMe RAID. Exactly that. No biggie, I have other drives to work with. At Sweetwater, thank you Sweetwater, I got myself an Envoy FX Pro, I think it's called. It's a 2 terabyte OWC drive, which clocks in with Thunderbolt at 2700 megs a second, 2.7 gig or whatever. Ridiculous. And as you can see right now, I'm also testing the OWC SSD, which is another 2 terabyte I've got on there. So right now I'm working off that external drive until Apple gets their shit together and I can plug this back in. So all I had to do is pull that out of the Flex case and my system was working again. So that's not an OWC issue, that's a Mac issue. Any NVMe RAID isn't going to work. But maybe it's already fixed. But I have other drives that work. So I'll put this back in as soon as Apple does another update. I want to thank OWC for working with me. They gave me a great deal on all this stuff, but most certainly for the amazing tech support they did. Thank you, Sebastian. That was really, really nice. I had someone to call who was super knowledgeable, helped me with any issues, called me back immediately, responded on Sundays. You didn't have to do that. But most certainly gave me the peace of mind for me to think, okay, this is going to work. I hate external storage. I had bad experience with it, and I didn't want to go with it. So going purely Thunderbolt already was a kind of peace of mind thing, but going with OWC was a huge peace of mind thing. And it absolutely works. I've got this tiny computer there. The performance in terms of hard drive speed is as good as it gets. The space is ridiculous. And as a video editor, I don't even have time to go and get a coffee anymore. I just exported a 40-minute video, 36 minutes, with titles, different video codecs. I mean, there's HVAC, there's ProRes, all this. It doesn't care. It exported the 36-minute 4K video, I think in like 4 or 5 minutes? It's utterly ridiculous. The speed of this machine now is utterly ridiculous. My Mac Pro was nice, but Apple killed it. Is this a computer for, I think the computer's $8,000, add the drives and all that. We're looking at, I don't know, 12, 13, 14, I don't even want to know. It's insane to have a computer for that much money. However, the speed allows me to perform the way that I do and release videos in the schedule that I do and release long videos that if I find a mistake somewhere, I'll just export it again. Because bam, it can do it. The drives allow the Mac to grab the data fast enough. Thank you, OWC, for your trust in me and for great products. So again, I'm using an OWC Thunderbolt dock, the OWC Thunderbolt hub, Thunderbolt 4 hub, Thunderbolt 4 hub, the mini stacks, I think that's called stacks mini something, and the Flex 8, and the Excelsior 4M2, and now in the Mac Pro, the 8M2. Thank you for that. They had a demo unit and put it in, bam, it worked! I love it when a plan comes together. I've never had a computer migration where I installed everything from scratch work this flawlessly. It took a while to get the data transferred, yes, because we talked about 40 terabytes of stuff I had to move from drives and consolidate a new computer, but it's working now and it's a beast. So if you are thinking about going to a Mac Studio, but storage space is your concern, do not save money. Go to OWC, get the mini stacks underneath, put a big ass driver in there, put a fast driver in there. If you're looking at any kind of RAID thing, go get the Flex 8. It is in no way this kind of plasticky crap. The way that everything just feels as high quality as it can get. It is the shit. And that's really the message of this video. OWC is the shit. Thank you for watching. This was all very boring and had many numbers, but I hope it helped someone who's trying to make a decision in what computer to go with and how to tackle their external storage. Thanks for that, and animals at the end.